In 2023, there was an op-ed written in the Wall Street Journal titled "Trump's Best Foreign Policy: Not Starting Any New Wars." I don't know how that aged. And I also would be curious if you can guess who wrote that op-ed 3 years ago. Well, you're about to find out because we want you to pour a drink and you're stepping into our group chat about politics and the next generation of leaders in our country. This is Political Playlist Happy Hour.
Welcome to Political Playlist.
All right, are we ready, guys?
Happy hour.
Happy hour.
We fucked that up so bad.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. I'm Anna Muskie-Goldwyn.
And I'm Anthony Barquette.
And today we're talking about how to talk about the Iran war and Vice President JD Vance, because believe it or not, that op-ed that I just mentioned that was written 3 years ago in the Wall Street Journal, that was written by our Vice President, JD Vance, praising Trump for not starting any new wars, which, well, he's Vice President flip-flopper to me.
Isn't it just crazy?
Another example.
Isn't it just crazy how you can say anything and then like a year later to be like, I'm a changed person. I went to therapy and, you know,
I don't know
think
about the
that
therapy
way.
part.
Well, yeah. I mean, I went to church, you know.
He became a Catholic, right? He became a Catholic and then
more like a Christian, I would say.
No, he's a
Christian
Catholic.
religions.
He's on a whole book tour about converting to Catholicism.
Yeah, but you don't rip on the Pope and
That's part
claim
of
you're a Catholic.
That's part of the flip flopping.
Yeah. The Christians are starting to take over the Catholic religion, but don't get me wrong. Catholics have their problems.
You're Catholic, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into that serious business, we're going to talk about even more serious business really briefly, because while people have been rightly focused on the mess that is the reflecting pool and that poor dead baby duck, there's another tragedy of nature unfolding near the White House. What's going on?
Also, you got to love this. Like, out of all the things to happen, it's like the pool, this has been a disaster for him.
Disaster.
Even though Obama spent, I think, 20-ish million, upgrading the reflecting pool. We've now spent another, how much was this? Was it 14 million to do this? And now we have dead baby ducks floating in the water.
And workers pouring hydrogen peroxide into it as if that's a proper solution.
Yeah, but obviously this administration doesn't care about the environment. But so the other funny thing that happened was after UFC sort of took down everything from the event, they had actually estimated spending about $700,000 for repurposing or fixing the damage that was done to the lawn. And an aerial view shows the lawn, the White House South lawn, and it is just it looks like it was a concert, right? But guess who stepped up? A donor has stepped up to now pay for the restoration. It's called Scott's Miracle-Gro. They are a lawn care company. They have pledged $1 million in cash and products to restore the South Lawn. And surprisingly, they are also one of the people who funds Political Playlist. So this is pretty crazy.
Get at us, Miracle-Gro.
Yeah, I would like to get some free grass for my house. But so why is this controversial? Critics are arguing that a private company donating money and services to restore White House grounds could create ethical questions, especially when the company may have interests before the federal government. So it's kind of interesting to see that this is happening. I'm not going to go too in depth on the company, Scott's Miracle-Gro, but they are an American company, so that's a positive.
Better than the structure that was built in Europe.
Exactly. And they're headquartered in Ohio, and they started in 1868. And the company manufactures and sells consumer lawn, garden, and pest control products. So I was like, at the end of the day, I'm not feeling as bad about this situation, but
but again, it wouldn't just be nice if they could give $1 million to I don't know, funding education or healthcare, or I'm sure it's more than it's kind of I feel like the thing with the Trump administration is they create a mess and then find a way to fix it, quote unquote, without taxpayer money. But
And
all
Anna,
of this wealth from these companies can go to so many other things.
and Anna, I'm totally with you on this because once again, if I was president and you're allowing things to happen like this, which hasn't really happened before, I'd be like, the recognition you're going to get in the media from me allowing you to do this is going to be tens of 20s, maybe hundreds of millions of visibility. So how about you put another 10 million into X if you want this?
It's gonna be like the Ellipse Lawn sponsored by Scott's Miracle Grow. There'll be like a sign.
Yeah.
It's a branding experiment.
That's it.
Well, on to I don't know, more important business, equally important business. The war in Iran is unfolding, and we have a MOU, which is like an agreement that isn't really an agreement, but now they're negotiating the actual agreement, which apparently is only going to take 60 days, even though the Obama agreement took over a year. So what's like the status? Let's start there.
Well, coming from someone in finance, an MOU doesn't mean shit, to be honest.
Okay, coming from someone not in finance, that's exactly how I feel. I was this feels like something written on a napkin and then sort of like tossed aside.
You kind of start an MOU and go, like, I hope we follow through with this, but no one really does. And people back out all the time. But isn't it nice that the VP is actually doing something? Am I right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if it goes well for him, it will be good. If it doesn't go well for him, I'm afraid that he's screwed. But
so you know what I feel like this situation is, though? This is straight up Biden giving Kamala the border.
Exactly.
Like there's no win here for him, frankly. But, there was a MOU, a memorandum of understanding signed this past week. It was actually on Sunday. And we've been in this Iran war for 4 months. So negotiators met with Iranian officials in Switzerland to begin the negotiations. One of the interesting things that kind of came out of this was Vance kind of rebuking Israeli politicians for their criticism of the MOU, which actually drew a lot of scrutiny from Republican conservatives.
Specifically, Lady Lindsey Graham.
Lady Lizzie, who some are claiming is, have you heard this?
Gay?
Conspiracy? No. No, they're saying that it's Netanyahu's wife. They're saying they look the same. It's amazing. My algorithm is doing really well right now.
I love it.
But on Saturday, Iran claimed that Israeli strikes in Lebanon violated the MOU. So then everything got disheveled again. But now we're back to the MOU. So let me tell you what the MOU says. And then I want to go back to those comments that JD Vance made about Israel. So Anna, what do you want to hear first from me?
I want to know what exactly is in the MOU, because I feel like Vance was out there saying there was stuff in it that was not in it.
Okay. Well, for starters, it's a 14-point framework. All right.
It's like it's like a little bullet list.
And it's a 60-day preliminary agreement.
Right.
So you're like, someone's definitely bombing someone. We're in the hottest days. Like, it's so hot in Europe, let alone the Middle East. Like, people are losing their minds right now.
Someone's bombing someone.
Someone's just going to be like, screw this, we're bombing them. So the first one's immediate ceasefire. So the deal will secure an immediate, ceasefire military operations between the U.S., Iran, and parts of Lebanon. I think all of Lebanon should be included. So the second thing is the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. Central Command will lift its naval blockade and reopen the waterway to commercial shipping. 3, sanctions relief. The U.S. has agreed to lift blockades and sanctions on Iranian oil exports. Nuclear inspections. Iran has agreed to reaffirm it will not pursue nuclear weapons and will allow inspectors from the IAEA to come in, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which we know how well that has worked out. And then the Reconstruction Fund. An agreement includes $300 billion in reconstruction and economic development fund backed by Gulf states and allied nations, which Iran can access if it complies with dismantling of its nuclear program. So nice to rebuild communities. What's unresolved and the challenges of this MOU, which probably makes it not going to happen. Uranium stockpile. Experts have raised concerns about this. There's like a lot of blind spots regarding Iran's current enriched uranium stockpiles. There's not really a number put on it. Second thing is just regional tensions. It doesn't really address around broader regional ambitions or missile programs. And Israel's not a party to this deal. And Israel seems to be the country that keeps bombing, right?
Yes.
And
if someone's bombing, Israel's bombing for sure.
And future negotiations, it's a 60-day window. It's intended to, turn these understandings into a permanent accord. But it's a 60-day window.
Yeah.
So,
and again, I will reiterate that the Obama deal that all these Republicans like Lindsey Graham thought was so weak, that took a year and a half to hammer out. So 60 days feels like a very ambitious task for Mr. Vance. And in his, the background, we have Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who have kind of been like at the center of all this along. And Vance was saying, I'm only going to be here for a day or two in Switzerland at these talks. Then he's going to leave and leave it up to Witkoff and Kushner to kind of like hammer everything out. And what I became so curious about is like Vance's involvement in this, I think, has some real implications. And before I get to that, I wanted to say something about the IAEA, which you mentioned, which are these nuclear inspectors that can go in. And Vance went out there saying, oh, like we've made progress because we're going to have these inspectors back into the country. That is what the Obama deal did until Trump withdrew. And like, I keep wanting to give the benefit of the doubt to this and saying like, okay, maybe there is progress that can be made. I think we all agree, like Iran is not a country we want to have nuclear weapons. But every time that something comes out of this, I'm like, wait, didn't we already have that? When he's like, oh, we're going to make progress on reopening the strait and we're going to have, free commercial trade through it. It's like, wait, isn't that what we had 4 months ago? And so whether it's right before this war or it's back in, 2017 before Trump withdrew from the previous agreement, I'm kind of like, what is the point of all of this? I don't understand. And now Vance just has to be like a champion of all of this when we know, like that op-ed that I stated, that he doesn't believe any of this. He was one of the leading voices against U.S. military intervention in foreign countries when he was running for the Senate, in the Senate, running for president. He was against the Senate package that gave $61 million to Ukraine on that basis. He's a former he's a war veteran. Did you know he's the first Iraq or Afghanistan veteran to ever be on a presidential ticket? That makes sense, but it was an interesting thing to read. Like this guy is going against his own morals, beliefs, feelings about foreign policy. And then he's going out there and essentially saying, we're going to get all this stuff, but everything that he says is something that we already had at a certain point in time. And it just drives me nuts because then I go to the gas station, it costs $100 to fill up my car. And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't get it. And I think most people feel that way.
As a Catholic, isn't it funny to see how God works in mysterious ways after he publishes that op-ed and now he basically has to eat his words? Pretty funny.
While he's on book tour about his Catholicism.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I honestly thought really an interesting part of this was his comments on Israel.
Yeah.
And I just kind of see this, and this has been a massive topic of conversation at lunches and dinners I've been at, is Israel's involvement and how people are looking at it now. And this is a direct quote from him. My message to them would be twofold. Number one, Donald J. Trump is the only head of state in the entire world who is sympathetic to the nation of Israel at this moment in time. Pretty scary if you're in Israel. Number
Mhm.
2, if I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be attacking the only powerful ally that I have anywhere left in the entire world. And he followed up saying he would remind those cabinet members that 2/3 of the defense weapons that have protected Israel have been built by American hands and paid for by the American tax dollars.
Jesus. Nice reminder.
I'm honestly surprised they went this deep, because this gives even more. I mean, I'm not really sure how everything flipped from the Democrats being against the like Israel,
No,
because
it's
it used,
well, that's like I
you
feel
know,
like that's what's happening is there's this sort of realignment of like all the Republican Party was so sort of cohesive in its pro-Israel stance, specifically after October 7th and all of this stuff. And then with the Iran war and seeing how Israel is frankly misbehaving. I mean, like it's kind of crazy. They signed this MOU and then like a couple days later, they're bombing in Lebanon again.
yeah.
And so I think that you have Vance probably speaking a bit more on behalf of some of the like MAGA part of the party who feels like, why are we letting Israel dictate the progress of this? Because it doesn't seem like they have realistic expectations. And Vance actually said that before the war began, or right when it began, saying that he was suspicious of what Israel was laying out, because they were essentially laying out a scenario where regime change would be very easy, where they would be able to have some unification in the Middle East with Iran. And obviously that didn't happen. And so I think that JD Vance actually has been right about a lot of this stuff. I don't agree with him on Ukraine, but I think he's been right about a lot of this stuff that has happened with Iran. But now he finds himself needing to be the spokesperson to support it. And I just think that's a wild position to be in.
Yeah, another interesting part of this whole situation is, I was just in Europe, and I was talking to a lot of people who had actually moved to Dubai, and they were back in London and Paris, and I was like, "How's everything going with the war?" And they're like, "Oh, everything's back to normal. Everything's fine. Like, we'll be fine the rest of the summer." And I thought that was interesting to hear.
That's so weird.
That's maybe the sentiment over there, which I was like, "Wow, it doesn't really feel that way." And everyone's like, well, the agreement's being signed right now in Switzerland. And
Well, and I think that the problem is that the fighting for now has stopped, right? So all of that bombing that was happening in Dubai or like in these other places has ceased for the moment. But then you had Trump going off saying like we're going to bomb Iran again just like we bombed them last week and all this stuff, which is only complicating the role of JD Vance in all of this. And one thing I wanted to kind of jump to, because I think it's really important to talk about, is what this means for a potential JD Vance 2028 presidential run.
Oh, please, let's hear it.
And so you started to compare this, I think rightly so, to Biden kind of giving Kamala the issue of the border, which was a fool's errand, and I think ultimately a huge component of why she was a weaker presidential candidate in 2024.
And I'll say the same thing that Kamala should have done, that JD Vance should do, is he should drive the border of Iran right now to fix it.
Drive the border?
Well, I thought she should drive the border of Mexico, but if he's in charge of Iran,
I think he should go through the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, on a ship. That's a good call. Yeah. That's a good call.
Territory.
Feels safer than mine, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that. There's landmines in the Strait of Hormuz right now. So this is the problem, is that Vance is at a humongous disadvantage here, because the first thing is, as I mentioned, they have 60 days to get this done. The Obama deal took over a year. So even if you have the best negotiators in the world, even if you feel like you've made progress with this MOU, 60 days is not a long time. Secondly, Trump exaggerates the success of everything. So Trump is out there saying, everything's going great. We're getting all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then on the ground, Vance has to be sort of the sobering voice of reason, which I think is going to make him continually look a little bit incompetent and look a little bit like he doesn't know what he's doing. This is a guy who has no foreign policy experience. He was in the Senate for a very short time. Before that, he worked in the private industry and finance and tech, and has never had these high stakes like diplomatic talks. He's not someone who worked at the State Department. He's not someone who has had these overseas trips a lot in his career. And so I think he's set up for failure. And the problem is that if the US doesn't get what it wants, which frankly, I think is really unrealistic to say, okay, we're going to have all of the enriched uranium from Iran basically taken out of the country. They're going to agree to put it somewhere. I just don't see how that's happening with the current leverage that Iran has, because they have managed to resist regime change. They've managed to resist any sort of agreement with the Strait of Hormuz thus far. And they've managed to essentially completely rock the world economy as one country. And so if that failure in the ultimate agreement takes place, you know that Trump isn't going to be owning that. He's going to put it on Vance, or the public is going to put it on Vance, because Vance is going to be the one that has to go out and do these press conferences about it. And I think that when there's already people, Republicans like Lindsey Graham, who we mentioned, who are sort of against a lot of this because they feel like it's actually too similar to the Obama deal, they're now apparently calling this the Vance deal. And that's not in a good way. That's like already mocking it. And it's just like he's I don't know. He's in a shitty position, I think.
To me, I've said this a couple times. I think Trump is really losing it. And I do think Trump has been a brilliant guy in many aspects. And when that person loses it, you see that everyone around him are losers. And these people cannot like handle the situations that Trump has been able to handle it. Like, he is a master at handling a press conference and deflecting and marketing, right? Like, these guys can't do one of those things.
But I think now Trump is failing at that with the Iran war.
No, I think this is actually more to Trump's mental state, is he's not fully there anymore, which is going to be, it's going to be, we're in for a ride.
Well, and I think to the 2028 of it all, Vance finds himself in a position right now that I think he's going to find himself in a position in 2 years, which is being caught between the MAGA base, which by and large opposes the war and has opposed the war from the first place, and pro-Israel Republicans like Lindsey Graham, et cetera, because that is the line that any Republican nominee for president now is going to have to walk. Because if they're not Trump, they don't have that je ne sais quoi that like allows Trump to do whatever the fuck he does.
Excuse me, we're in America. Please speak American, okay?
Excusez-moi. And I also, a funny thing is that Lindsey Graham wants JD Vance to come to Congress and personally present the final deal to Congress, which to me just feels like a setup for humiliation. And so I'm also kind of invested in this like Lindsey Graham, JD Vance sort of duel over the future of Republican foreign policy. And I think that JD Vance, as much as I do think he's like annoyingly smart, I think that he has like no riz. He has no sense of humor. He has no ability to like manipulate the media or this stuff.
Commands attention.
Yeah, and I feel like Lindsey Graham has been in this game for a really long time and has learned how to do those things. And so that is another thing I think to look out for, is like, what are these Senate Republicans who have been in there for a long time, who are pretty hawkish, especially when it comes to Israel and the Middle East? What are they going to do to Vance?
Yeah. I mean, for starters, Lindsey Graham has been able to hide that he's gay for 75 years of his life. So he is a master in disguise.
Master feat. Did you just like super sidetrack? Did you see that photo of him with the UFC fighters that everyone was making a meme of? Oh my God, I couldn't.
But I will say,
just in time for Pride Month.
I actually think the Republicans are moving into what the Democrats experienced in the last election. I think Trump is losing it, and the Republican Party is going to have to realize what to do. And like, he's just going to fully start losing it. coming up to the election? And are they going to be behind Vance? Are they going to have to get behind Rubio? And how are they going to handle that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting question because I also think it seems like Trump is positioning the Vance-Rubio duo as a package right now and not as opponents. And what will be interesting to see is if some of these more legacy Republicans try to boost Rubio in opposition to Vance, maybe in a year or so, depending on what's going on with Trump. And so I think that will be something interesting to watch because, like, what's so crazy to me is that Rubio isn't the one being the face of this Iran thing because
Yeah,
he's he's the Secretary of State. He's the
state.
one with the diplomatic experience. He's the one who I probably think would be more in actual favor of the war than JD Vance is. But he's kind of like, on the sidelines looking in, which makes me think that Trump is really both trying to like give Vance a bone, but at the same time, like set him up for disaster, maybe unknowingly.
I just think about when Trump had the debate and said Rubio was sweating so much, like his hands were so
Little
wet.
Marco.
And I was like, I bet he's just melting in these meetings, even though they're inside, just like between play,
The Rubio is that he's just like holding his tongue. I wanted to, before we wrap this up, I wanted to just say a couple other things about what JD Vance has said in the past about foreign wars. Because he had another quote where he said that as a veteran, I saw when I went to Iraq that I had been lied to. And I think that actually is how a lot of the American people feel right now. That we feel like, maybe not all of us, but a portion of us feel like we were sold this idea that the Obama-Iran deal was not good, that it was weak, that it was empowering Iran in certain ways, that it was enriching Iran in certain ways, which I think there's a lot of debate over, how that financially was helping Iran versus what could have been. And that potential lie or potential idea being sold to so much of the American public is what was the basis of Trump invading Iran this time. And I just feel like there's a lot of people who are starting to see that they have been lied to, that they were sold some snake oil when it came to what was a good deal with Iran and what was not. And I think that JD Vance is now in the position of defending that, even though he's the guy. Like, I feel this like time and time again about JD Vance, where I'm like, he's smart, like he knows better, but he's positioned himself for power and for whatever his future is. He's obviously a young guy that it never ceases to amaze me how some politicians will so brazenly abandon their own belief system for power. And it's why people hate politics and hate politicians. And I think in this moment of politics, there is truly no better example than JD Vance. He said in 2024, quote, "It would be a huge distraction of resources, a war in Iran. It would be massively expensive to our country." And he was right.
Yeah.
So
I
don't
have
know.
nothing to say to his quotes from before. They're perfect.
I mean, they're perfect. It's like it's like it writes itself. You know what I mean? He said in that op-ed, by the way, one of the quotes was, "I know Trump, won't recklessly send Americans to fight wars overseas."
Awkward.
Awkward. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm not holding my breath. And I think
super
to your
excited.
point, someone's gonna fucking start bombing again.
It's hot over there. I just got back.
I want to ask you one question before we go. Your family is Lebanese. Like, when this stuff is unfolding in Lebanon, like, as someone who has familial ties to the place, what does it make you feel?
I mean, people have gone back and forth with saying Hezbollah really took over a lot of parts of Lebanon, and that's why it just has never been able to have peace again. So what Israel was doing was bombing a lot of these Hezbollah spots, but now it's kind of, people at the beginning were like, this is a good thing. And now you're like, this is not a good thing because we've allowed it to happen. And Lebanon wouldn't do it itself. They wouldn't expel Hezbollah because they're part of the government. So I think, they let the devil in, and now it's going to be hard to let the devil out.
That's wild.
And I'm not saying that from an Israel standpoint. I'm just like allowing other countries to come in and bomb.
Yeah.
Not good.
It doesn't end well.
Yeah.
Bombing doesn't end well. Well, with that, if you guys enjoyed this episode and others like it, please make sure you're following or subscribed wherever you are listening to this or watching this, and leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. If it's a nice one, we'll reply to you. If it's a mean one, we'll probably text it to each other and laugh. So mean ones are fine because they bring us amusement, but nice ones are better.